Have you ever wondered what happens when the most powerful CEO in a skyscraper encounters the quiet janitor who holds secrets that could change everything? Imagine a cold, late night in a towering office building where the polished marble floors gleam under the harsh fluorescent lights, and behind every glass wall, ambitions simmer. Victoria Blake, a young and ruthless CEO, believes she knows exactly how the world works until a simple question she asks a janitor named Michael Carter sets off a chain of events that will challenge her very notions of power, pride, and love. What happens when dignity meets defiance? When a man with no titles and a worn mop pushes back against the cold stare of corporate disdain with calm strength? This is a story of unexpected courage, whispered secrets, and a love that defies every expectation. Stay with us as we unravel how two lives, seemingly worlds apart, collide in the most extraordinary way, transforming not only their own hearts but the entire world around them. Will Victoria see beyond the surface before it's too late? Keep watching to find out. The elevator's soft ding broke the silence of the towering Skyline Tower as its doors slid open on the 34th floor, spilling cold fluorescent light onto the polished marble floor. It was just past 9 in the evening. The office lights dimmed, most executives long gone, leaving only the faint echoes of hurried footsteps and lingering tension behind glass walls. Michael Carter pushed his cleaning cart with quiet precision, his worn gray uniform immaculate despite the long hours. His movements were deliberate, methodical, almost military silent, in a way that made him nearly invisible in this world of power suits and executive bravado. But that night, he was not invisible. Victoria Blake, the youngest CEO the Blake Corporation had ever known, stepped out of her glass office tablet in one hand, a cold cup of coffee in the other. Her sharp navy skirt and crisp blouse were as impeccable as the steely expression that never quite left her face. She paused, eyes narrowing, as she watched Michael mop in front of the conference room. "New here?" she asked, voice sharp, carrying a hint of disdain. Michael nodded without raising his eyes. Victoria's gaze didn't waver as she continued. "Do you even know what you're doing? That mop's leaving streaks all over the floor. We don't tolerate mediocrity here, especially not from people like you." He stopped mid-sweep, straightened up, slowly wiped the sweat from his brow, and finally met her gaze. There was no anger, no offense, only an almost unsettling calmness, a quiet dignity. "Don't worry, Ms. Blake," he said softly. "I'll make sure I leave no trace, neither on the floor nor on your time." Her eyes flickered with something she didn't expect, a spark of curiosity, maybe even admiration, before she turned sharply and walked away. But even as she retreated to her office, her breath caught for a moment, betraying the icy facade. Michael resumed his work without another word. In his pocket, a small folded paper peeked out, the crayon drawing of a little girl named Emily. No one noticed, and that was enough for him. The next evening, Michael returned with the same quiet routine. The cold corridor lights cast long shadows. The marble gleamed under his steady hands. Victoria caught sight of him again, her interest growing despite herself. It was unlike her to waste even a second on a janitor, yet there she was, watching him from behind her glass walls. He didn't shout back, didn't make excuses. His silence carried a weight all its own, a dignity that stung more than any insult. Later, when she opened the internal incident report, her assistant's note caught her eye. A janitor had tightened a loose latch on an executive bathroom door without permission. The security footage showed Michael kneeling, tool in hand, focused and careful. On the screen of his phone, a picture of a curly-haired girl with a wide smile was visible. Emily, she guessed. Questions began swirling in Victoria's mind. Who was Michael Carter? The database revealed little. Hired 3 months ago, no prior references, a widower living in Riverdale with a young daughter. A man quietly carrying a world of loss and responsibility. That night, a sudden blackout plunged the tower into darkness. Emergency lights flickered with a faint blue glow. Victoria was still in her office, pride keeping her from leaving. The building was silent except for the rain thrumming against the windows. Making her way to the 28th floor, she found the emergency generator room, where Michael was already at work, illuminated by the light of his cell phone. His hair was damp, his hands steady as he adjusted wiring, with a skill that belied his janitor's uniform. "Ms. Blake," he greeted her calmly. The backup relay didn't trigger properly. I'm trying to reset the router from the auxiliary panel. How do you know all this? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. I designed this system years ago, he replied, eyes meeting hers with serene honesty, before I left that life. In that moment, Victoria saw the man behind the mop, the engineer, the father, the man who had chosen sacrifice over status. For the first time, there was no hierarchy between them. No office, no uniform, no title, just two broken souls recognizing each other in silence. She thanked him softly for staying. He replied, "Thank you for noticing." As the storm raged outside, a fragile connection was forged in the emergency-lit hallway, an invisible thread pulling two unlikely people closer. But the question hung heavy in the air. Could a CEO and a janitor bridge the vast chasm between their worlds? Or would the walls of power and pride keep them apart? Dear viewers, I'm so sorry to pause the story here. Thank you for understanding. Before we continue, I want to ask you two questions. What do you think Michael's true motivations are for staying so dedicated, despite his humble position? How do you think Victoria's feelings will evolve now that she's seen a side of him no one else does? Also, I'd love to know, what country are you watching from today? Please drop it in the comments, and if you're enjoying the story so far, please show some love by liking and hearting this video. It really helps us bring more heartfelt stories to you. The next few weeks unfolded like a slow-burning fire. Victoria Blake found herself drawn inexplicably to Michael Carter, the janitor whose quiet strength and unwavering dedication refused to be ignored. Despite the growing whispers among her board members and the office grapevine, she sought him out more often, stealing moments between meetings and late nights in the towering Skyline Tower. One evening, as the city lights flickered beneath a rain-soaked sky, Victoria descended the stairwell to the lower lobby, an area rarely graced by executives. There, by the vending machines, Michael stood beside his daughter Emily, who clutched a thick astronomy book far too large for her small hands. The sight struck Victoria deeply, the rugged janitor transforming into a tender father, sharing warmth and stories with his child amidst the cold hum of machines and flickering fluorescence. "Pankies tomorrow if you finish your reading," Michael told Emily with a smile that softened the hard edges of his world. Victoria lingered, feeling a pull she couldn't name. She realized she was no longer just intrigued by Michael's mysterious depth. She was captivated by the man who had shaped the quiet resilience behind his gentle eyes. But the growing closeness was impossible to hide. Gossip sparked like wildfire through the corridors of power. Whispers twisted into accusations, and Victoria's closest allies warned her of the damage to her reputation. "Are you seriously involved with a janitor?" One senior partner sneered during a tense board meeting. "This could ruin everything you've built." Victoria's jaw clenched. She met their judgment with icy composure, but inside the storm roared louder than any outside. The weight of expectation clashed with the stirrings of her heart. Finally, the pressure became too much. With a heavy heart, Victoria summoned Michael to the 34th floor for a conversation that would change everything. "Michael," she said, voice steady but cold, "I can no longer allow you access to this floor after hours. It's too risky, and frankly, the board won't tolerate it." His gaze met hers, not with anger, but with a quiet sadness that cut deeper than any rejection. "Is this really your choice or theirs?" he asked softly. Victoria faltered. For a moment, she wanted to confess her fears, her hopes, but the silence between them was filled with everything left unsaid. "It's professional," she managed, "for the good of the company and us." Michael packed his tools slowly, every movement deliberate. Then, with a voice steady as steel, he said, "Sometimes what truly needs fixing isn't broken locks or faulty wiring. It's the walls we build around ourselves. You're running from something, Victoria. I hope one day you stop." With that, he walked away, leaving her alone amidst the shadows of the skyscraper, the city sprawling endlessly beyond the glass. Days passed. Victoria's world became a blur of meetings and missed moments. Yet she could not shake Michael's words. They echoed in the quiet chambers of her heart, challenging her pride and preconceptions. Late one night, she found herself back at the building's lobby, standing before the worn door of Michael's modest apartment. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil within. Emily's bright eyes greeted her with innocent surprise as Victoria stepped inside the hum of everyday life, enveloping her a world far removed from glass towers and corporate battles. I needed to see for myself, Victoria confessed, to understand what I've been too afraid to admit. Michael listened without interruption, the years of sacrifice and loss etched into every line of his face. I tried to push you away, she whispered, voice breaking, because I thought it was safer, but it was only loneliness I was protecting. In that moment, the barriers fell. The weeks that followed saw Victoria and Michael navigating a fragile new reality, caught between a society quick to judge and a love that refused to be silenced. Their bond deepened in stolen glances, shared secrets, and quiet strength. Yet outside the warmth of their connection, the world watched, waited, and whispered. Then came the night of the annual Blake Corporation Gala, a night where power and prestige danced under chandeliers and reputations were forged or shattered. Victoria arrived arm in arm with Michael, dressed simply yet radiantly. The room fell silent as whispers spread, the CEO and the janitor side by side. An old business partner approached with a condescending smile. "Victoria, who is this?" She turned slowly, eyes steady and voice clear. "Michael Carter, my fiancé." The stunned silence was broken only by Michael's firm handshake and poised introduction. "I may not have your degrees or designer suits," he said, "but I know what it means to fight for what matters. And today, that's Victoria." The crowd's skepticism melted into applause, a triumph not just of love, but of courage against every expectation. That night, as music swirled and stars sparkled overhead, Victoria rested her head on Michael's shoulder, whispering, "You never changed who you are." "That's what amazes me most." He smiled softly, the calm in his eyes speaking volumes. "True love doesn't ask for perfection, only acceptance." "I'm deeply sorry to interrupt the story here. Thank you so much for your understanding and patience. Before we continue, I'd love to hear your thoughts. How far do you think Victoria will go to protect her relationship against societal pressures? What do you think Michael's next move will be in the face of these challenges? And please tell me, what country are you watching from right now? I'd love to know. If you're enjoying this story, please show your support by liking the video and leaving a heart. It means the world to us and helps bring more stories like this to you. The grand ballroom of the Blake Corporation Gala gleamed under crystal chandeliers, casting pools of golden light over polished marble floors and well-dressed guests. Victoria Blake entered with measured confidence, her hand resting gently yet firmly in Michael Carter's. The man who had once quietly swept floors and fixed doors now stood proudly by her side, not as a janitor, but as the man she loved, her fiancé, her partner in every sense. The room's atmosphere shifted instantly. Conversations hushed. Eyes turned curiosity, prickling the air like static. Some faces showed surprise, others barely concealed skepticism. Whispers fluttered like restless wings, an executive and a janitor, impossible. Yet here they were, arm in arm, unstoppable. An old business partner approached, lips curling into a smirk that barely masked disdain. "Victoria," he said, voice dripping with condescension, "who is this gentleman accompanying you?" Victoria turned slowly, eyes blazing with quiet fire, and said simply, "Michael Carter, the man I have chosen to spend my life with." Michael extended his hand, voice calm and unwavering. "I may not wear expensive suits or hold fancy degrees, but I understand what it means to work hard, to be loyal, and to love deeply." A moment of stunned silence followed before applause rippled through the room. What began as shock blossomed into admiration. They were witnessing something rare, a union forged not by wealth or status, but by respect, resilience, and truth. Later, as the gala wound down, Victoria and Michael found themselves alone on the rooftop terrace overlooking the city's glittering skyline. The night air was cool, carrying the faint scent of rain and the hum of distant traffic. Victoria rested her head on Michael's shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her ear. "You never changed who you are," she whispered. "That's what amazes me most. In a world that demands so much, you've stayed true." Michael smiled, a gentle light in his eyes. "Love isn't about changing yourself to fit someone else's expectations. It's about being seen and accepted just as you are." Their wedding was far from the extravagant affairs common in their social circles. Instead, it was a quiet celebration held in a charming garden, surrounded by close friends and family who had witnessed their journey. The simplicity of the day mirrored the authenticity of their love. Emily Michael's bright-eyed daughter was the star of the ceremony. With a shy smile, she handed her parents their rings and said, "My dad fixes broken things, but this time he fixed someone's heart, and that's the strongest thing there is." Tears welled up in the eyes of those gathered, the applause spontaneous and full of emotion. Life after the wedding was no fairy tale without challenges. Victoria faced skepticism from the corporate world, whispers behind closed doors, and the persistent pressure to conform to societal expectations. Michael encountered subtle slights and reminders of the divide between their worlds. But together they weathered these storms with a foundation built on trust and mutual respect. Victoria, once hardened by the relentless pursuit of success, softened into a leader who led with empathy and humility. Michael, steadfast and unpretentious, continued his work, maintaining the tower, proud in his role, but even prouder to be the man Victoria chose. Their partnership became a beacon within the company, inspiring change, not just in boardrooms, but in hearts. Employees who once whispered turned to embrace their story, learning that dignity and worth transcend titles and paychecks. One quiet evening, Victoria stood in the lobby watching Michael fix a flickering light. She saw not just the janitor, but the man who had taught her that true power comes from kindness and authenticity. Turning to him, she said softly, "You changed everything for me, not just my life, but how I see the world." Michael took her hand, his eyes reflecting a calm certainty. "We changed it together." Their story spread far beyond the walls of Skyline Tower, a testament to love's ability to dismantle barriers and rewrite the narrative of what it means to succeed. Thank you for sharing this beautiful journey with us. I'm sorry to pause the story here, and I truly appreciate your patience and support. Before we end, I want to ask you two questions. What part of Victoria and Michael's journey inspired you the most? Do you believe their love will continue to grow stronger despite the challenges ahead? Please share your honest thoughts. If you love this story, comment number 3 below. If you think it could be improved, comment number 1. If it was just okay, comment number 2. I'd also love to know which country you're watching from. It's amazing to see how far this story reaches. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and send some hearts. Your support helps us bring more heartfelt stories to life. Thank you for being part of this experience. Would you like to hear more stories like this? If you want, I can expand or adapt any part further.